an honor.
And it's an honor to lift our voice and sing
To the living God.
to the living God.
No one can deny
No one can deny
that Jesus Christ.
Jesus Christ is the Most High.
Let's go, let's go, let's go, let's go, let's go, let's go.
Amen. Amen. Put your hands together for that video. Not exciting stuff when we're watching videos about pride, is it? I was racking my brain, and I was just trying to think about when I was ever any place where folk just focused in and talked about pride. It's just not something that we talk about all the time. But the Bible shows us that the thing that's separating you from loving like Christ is probably 9 times out of 10 going to be some form of pride. And so even before we get into this sermon, even before we go to any other slides or talk about anything else, I want to pause and I want you just to think about these questions. Because I think sometimes pride is one of those things that we cannot see within ourselves. We can see it in other people very easily. We can see it a mile away in other people. Matter of fact, the more prideful we are, more we hate people who are prideful. So one indicator, if you are a very proud person, should be, first of all, do people who are very prideful make you angry? Does it bother you? But I want you just to focus in on a couple of questions. First of all, do you feel like you're better than anybody else? I'm serious. I want you to think about that. I mean, do you really in your heart, can you say with clear conscience that you don't feel yourself to be better than anybody else? Because one of the major sources of pride is this thought that I'm better than this person. And we see a lot of that across our professions and in areas where we're really good. We look at other folk and we think they can't teach. I've got a lot of teachers here. They can't teach like me. That's pride. They can't speak like me. That's pride. If you don't think that you're better than somebody, the next question I want you to think about is, do you ever get to a place where you feel about a person or a certain group of people, I don't need you? Like it doesn't matter if you come back or not. I don't have to have you in order to live. I'm stronger than you. That's pride inside of you. When you get to a place and you look at somebody and you say, look, I don't need you. That's so untrue, because you were created to need people. You were created to care about people. And anytime we get to a place, especially in any relationship, and we look at somebody who we're supposed to love, a parent or a child or a friend, and we say, I don't need you, pride is at play. And then the final question, and you know, these may get harder or easier depending on how you feel, is I'm above the rules. Everybody else has to do that, but not me. Are you the person who says, I'm above the rules? I can go to the line that says 10 items only with 25 items, because those rules, they're not for me. We talked about this the other week inside of our prayer meeting. I'm proud in that, and God began to show me in that I don't believe that I have to take the buggy back to the place where the buggies go. I'm above that, right? I can just leave it, right? Somebody else who gets paid minimum wage and has a job, that's their responsibility. But I'm too busy. I got too many other things to do. So I'm proud in that sense. And I need to fix that. Are you the person who gets off, you know, we're on the freeway and there's traffic, and then you feel like that, you know, the city created that emergency lane just for you? So instead of you following the rules that everybody else has to follow, you get off the side and you go up. That's your lane, right? That lane is dedicated for you. That might be pride. And as I began to kind of think about this, pride is one of the biggest things that any of us will ever have to grapple with. I came across this verse. Look at this verse. It's 1 John chapter 2, 15 and 16. Now I want you to understand, if Paul writes the chapter on love, John writes books on love. John, he knows love better than anybody else. John really lays it out. And look what he says, right? He says, do not love this world, nor the things it offers you. Don't fall in love with this world or the things it offers you. For when you love the world, if you love the world, you do not have the love of the Father in you. That's a bold statement that John makes 2,000 years ago. He says, don't fall in love with this world, because if you love the world, then you're not in love with the Father. And what he's doing is he's showing that there's these two different worlds. There's these two different worlds at play. That's this world, the kingdom of God, where God the Father is in charge of that. And then there's this other world where the enemy is in charge of it. And he's saying you need to be careful not to fall in love with the wrong world. He says, for the world offers you only a craving for physical pleasure, a craving for everything you see. The world's only going to give you what you can touch and what makes you feel good to the touch. It only offer you those things that you ain't got no business looking at with your eyes, and you lusting after those things. And pride in our achievements and possessions. He says that if you've got some level of pride that doesn't come from God the Father, he's making a distinction between the way you feel. He's letting you know right now, if you've got some arrogance, some pride, some self-confidence that's going across the threshold into this arrogant pride area, that's not from God at all, but that's from this other world, the world that we live in, where it means everything to be proud, right? You walk around all day long and you're proud, and you're telling people how proud you are. And he says these are not from the Father, but they're from the world. And I sat there and I began to think about this, and it began to kind of weigh on me. And as I began to think about it, God dropped into my spirit this one example. And I want you to think about this for a second. How many of you everybody in here, I'm sure, is familiar with Superman? Everybody in here knows who Superman is. But how many of you are familiar with Bizarro Superman? See, Bizarro Superman is from a world called Bizarro. The world Bizarro is the exact opposite of Earth. Matter of fact, it's square instead of round. And everything that happens in Bizarro is exactly the opposite as how it happens on Earth. And so up in Bizarro is really down, and left in Bizarro is really right. And Superman, being a part of this world, has a Bizarro Superman. And check this out. This Bizarro Superman is the opposite of Superman. So if Superman is kind, this Bizarro Superman is mean. And if Superman stands for justice, this Bizarro Superman stands for injustice. And if Superman is patient, then this Bizarro Superman is impatient. And one thing got the other. If Superman has an iPhone, this Bizarro Superman has a Samsung. He is the exact opposite of Superman. And as I began to think about it, and I began to think about this verse, and I began to kind of think about it, I think that we live inside of this bizarro Christianity. And we do this bizarro love thing where it's not exactly how God had intended to be. It's absolutely nothing like agape love. And the problem with us is that our form of love has this pride thing in it. It's bizarro love, though. So I began to kind of think through, what does bizarro love look like? First of all, bizarro love puts its own needs above others. Bizarro love is this weird thing where it actually thinks about itself all the time, and it doesn't think about other people. Let's go a little bit further. It says, bizarro love, it can't celebrate the successes of others. If you get to a place where you're constantly putting yourself above other folk who you're in charge, in a love relationship with, your children, your parents, people at work, then you're in bizarro love. If you get to a place where you can't celebrate, oh, I don't want to let them get the big head. I don't want to celebrate people who God has put. Listen, for some of us, we need to understand that God has put you in place to encourage the people around you, to celebrate the people around you. And it's bizarro love. Not real love. When we get to a place where we hold on to saying good job or I love you or letting somebody know that you're proud of them. Bizarro love doesn't apologize. Even when it knows it's wrong, even when it understands exactly what the other person is saying, even when it knows it's 50% wrong or 100% wrong, bizarro love refuses to apologize. How about that? Bizarro love keeps on arguing. Well after it knows it's wrong, and even when it looks at the person that it loves, it knows that that person is hurt and wounded, it continues to pound in. That's not love, that's bizarro love. Bizarro love doesn't admit its weaknesses or ask for help. Bizarro love wants to look strong all the time. It doesn't want to let anybody know that they're weak. It doesn't want to let anybody know that they're addicted. It doesn't want to let anybody know that they're in need of help. Bizarro love is not honest with others. Some of you have been loved by this bizarro love with somebody you trusted and they lied to you. And they hurt you repeatedly. They were not honest to you. They broke your heart over and over again. And they said they love you, but what they meant to say is, I bizarro love you. Bizarro love feels good when others fail. It takes some kind of pride in seeing folk go through stuff. It says stuff like, it's about time somebody put that person in their place, or it's about time they were humbled or pulled down off of that high horse, right? That's how bizarro loves. It looks at somebody who's been hurt, somebody who you should love, somebody who you should help, and instead of helping them, it rejoices in the fact that they failed at something. What kind of love is this? It's bizarro love. Bizarro love has to have the final word. It has to be right. It refuses to be quiet. It won't let other people who it loves say anything in a conversation. Bizarro love has to be right, and it has to have the last word. Bizarro love is bizarre. And what I learned is, but bizarro love is proud. Bizarro love isn't love at all. It's pride. It doesn't have anything to do with love. If it loved, it wouldn't do any of the things that it does. But bizarro love is all about you. It's selfish. It's prideful. And bizarro love has no place in the world of God. Matter of fact, John has it exactly right. He says, when you are prideful, you are not in God's love. You are not operating in the love of God. John says that when we put pride above humility, above being humble, above other people, we're not operating within God at all. Paul says in 1 Corinthians chapter 13 and 4, love is patient and kind. We've already talked about patience and kind. He says, love does not envy, it's not boastful, it's not proud. And what he's saying is, love isn't inflated. It doesn't puff itself up. This word that they use for pride here is fusiao. And what it means is to literally inflate, similar to what we would do with a balloon. It gets blown up. This is where we get the expression from, don't continue to celebrate that person or don't compliment that person too much. Their head's going to blow up so big they won't be able to get out the door. That's where this comes from. It's where those expressions come from. And it's the process by which we inflate ourselves so much. We believe so much about who we are. We get so filled with pride. Nothing wrong with pride. You should have some level of pride. You ought to be proud of your family. But you shouldn't look at other families and put them down in order to be proud of your family. You ought to be proud of your children. Nothing wrong with being proud of your children. But not at the expense of comparing them to other children. And what Paul is showing us is that, listen, there's no room for conceitedness. There's no room for this puffing up, this proud heart, this pride that is completely destroying the church. And I will say this. As a church, we'll get through a scandal. I make a mistake, we'll get through it. Some people will leave, we'll get through it. As a church, we'll get through some hard times, some tough times. But the one thing that will destroy, and I've seen it destroy many churches, is pride. Paul was dealing with this in the church of Corinth. He uses this word over and over again to talk about the pride that he was experiencing there. They had this issue where one man was sleeping with his mother-in-law, believe it or not. And Paul came to them and he said, this is pride that you guys are allowing this to go on. You think that you are actually above the rules of God. Pride. They had this other situation where people had different gifts. And so some people could speak in tongues, some people couldn't. And some people could help and go out and set up things and work, had this gift of serving. And the people who spoke in tongues were kind of looking down on the other people who just served. And they were saying, well, my gift's better than yours. Pride. And the people who couldn't speak in tongues were looking at them and saying, well, you know what? I don't think your gift's real. I think that what I'm doing is real. Pride. And we see the same thing happening even to this day. Pride in the church. You want to see pride? Go to a pastor's conference. Amen. Get 600 or 800 pastors together in a room and listen to them and what they say and what they do. Pride. I want to talk about pride. What does the Bible tell us about pride? First of all, the Bible tells us that pride is evil and is sinful. Look at Proverbs 8 and 13. It says, all who fear the Lord will hate evil. So if that is true, therefore I hate pride and arrogance, corruption and perverse speech. If we are supposed to hate evil, Solomon calls out pride and arrogance as evil. Let's look at Proverbs 21 and 4. It says, haughty eyes, a proud heart, and evil actions are all sin. That's why this pride thing can't be a part of John's interpretation of what the world, what the Father's world looks like, is because God cannot have in his world things that are evil and sinful. Let's go a little bit further. It says that pride separates you from God. Look at James 4 and 6. It says, God resists the proud, but he gives grace to the humble. You talking about something that'll separate you from God quickly is pride. Let me just talk to somebody today. Somebody's been praying for something. You feel like God is not moving. You feel like God doesn't hear you. I want to challenge you today to examine your pride. I want to challenge you today to think about what are those things that you are proud about. Those things that have gone a little bit too far, that have gone into conceit and to arrogance, because God resists those people who are proud. God doesn't want to have anything to do with you because pride is evil and sinful. And God cannot deal with people who have pride because it is evil and sinful. But not just God resisting you, but pride becomes that thing that makes you resist God. Look at what David says in Psalms 10. He says, in his pride, the wicked man does not seek him, capital H, talking about God, in all his thoughts. There's no room for God. What What is he saying? What does that look like today? This looks like a situation in your life where you refuse to pray. You don't want God's help. You got control of it. You don't fear God. You don't think you need God. Instead, you've already given this thing to yourself. You're going to fix it on your own, and you've made no room for God in this part of your life. Pride. And pride separates us from God. Let's go a little bit further. He says, pride separates you from others. So not only are you separated from God, but now you've been separated from others. Psalms 101, this is David talking. He says, I will not tolerate people who slander their neighbors. I will not endure conceit and pride. And let me just talk to you for a second, because there are some people who have taken their hands off of you. They don't have anything to do with you, and you know it. You've been trying to figure out why such and such doesn't call me or invite me anymore. They won't have anything else to do with me. And I'm telling you now, it's because you're too prideful. They get tired of hearing you brag and talk about how great you are. They get tired of hearing you slander your neighbor. Always talking about other folk and always putting other folk down. Prideful. They get tired of being in a conversation with you, either talking about yourself or talking down on somebody else. And so what they've done is they've unfriended you in real life. Not only does it separate you from others, but we also learn that pride always leads to destruction. I know many of you guys have heard this verse before, that pride comes before the fall. That's how we generally say it. Proverbs 16 and 18 says, pride comes before destruction, and an arrogant spirit before a fall. Pride comes before a fall. And let me tell you something, nothing will destroy your relationships, your life, your job, whatever, like pride will. Try to push God out, it'll push the people out, and before you know it, everything that you've built, just like in that example, is falling. You're at ground zero. But the Bible shows us one thing that I really want you guys to get. If we can get this, I think we can move forward. I think we can make a difference. If we can understand that humility is the only cure, the only way that you can fix your marriage, you can get pride out of it, is that you learn this thing about humility. The only way that you can fix the relationship at work, listen, they're not going to have to change anything. That you got to change. It's not their responsibility to change. That's in this world. That's bizarro Christianity. When you expect for them to change in order for you to change. That's not what we've been called to do as Christians. That's bizarro Christianity. And this is, listen, that's bizarro love. When you have a daughter or a son, or a mother or a father, or when you have a best friend or somebody who you have made a decision that you don't need no more, or you don't have anything else to do with them, or you're better than they are. That's bizarro love. And what humility does is Proverbs 11 and 2, it says, when pride comes, disgrace follows. But when humility comes, wisdom. The first thing that humility does is it brings in wisdom. Now you can see this person for what they're really going through. You're talking about now you can help them. Now you can celebrate them. Now you can be there with them. Now you can encourage them, because instead of pride, instead of you thinking that person's not good enough for me, or not on my level, or doesn't know, or doesn't respect me, doesn't bow down to me, hallelujah for somebody. Now you're in a position to understand exactly why the person is not doing the thing that you want them to do. And sometimes you're able to get enough wisdom to understand that it's not the person. It's not my husband. It's not my wife. It's not my sister. It's not my brother. It's not my parents. It's not my co-workers. It's me. I'm dealing with some insecurity. I'm dealing with some hurt. I'm dealing with some pain. It's not them. It's me. Proverbs 18 and 12 says, before his downfall, a man's heart is proud. Before a downfall, a man's heart is proud, but humility comes before honor. And let me talk to you for a second, because I think all you guys would agree. There's not one proud person, one person that was arrogant, one person that was puffed up, one person that talked down to you, that you respect, that really made a difference in you. That's bizarro love. That doesn't help you out. That doesn't edify you. That doesn't encourage you. That doesn't get you out of situation. Tough love is bizarro love. It's fake. No such thing. Not in the Bible. That's in the world. But I want you to understand that when you're saying stuff like tough love and you're thinking about tough love and you're thinking about love and tough, that John is saying that you're in the world. That's pride, right? And he's saying that you are not in Father's love. You don't have anything, that doesn't have anything at all to do with God, at all. It's not Christian. Let's go a little bit further. I want to talk with you about loving without pride, because listen, we stay in bizarro world. That's who we are. We are bizarro. John says that this world that we're in, bizarro world, the love that we experience all the way up until this day, you have been loved bizarrely. Trust me. You're in situations right now, in relationships right now, where the source of your hurt is coming from people who love you. And no matter how many times they say they love you, you know that it's not right. You know that this bizarro love thing is not what God has for you. You know that bizarro Christianity is not what God has called us to be. I used to hear my friends who bus tables, who work in fast food, in restaurants. They used to talk about this bizarro Christianity way back then. They used to talk about hating to work on Sundays. Why do you hate to work on Sundays? They used to tell me that after the church crowd came in on Sundays, it was the worst, most prideful time of the week for them. That church folk came into the restaurant and was so prideful, and they treated them so bad because they were above them, because they were coming from church, right? And they were worshiping, and I was just working here in this minimum wage job, and I wasn't nobody. And let me stop for a second. I want to talk to somebody. I want you to understand that anytime that you're in a situation where you're in a superior place, where you've got people working for you, or you're at a place where people are doing something, providing a service, the way you treat them will speak directly to your pride issue. And what these people used to tell me is, I hate being here on Sundays because people come in from church, they don't tip. They complain about everything. They are rude. They are arrogant. They will get you told. That's bizarro Christianity. How have we become a group, a church of people who people hate to see us coming because of this bizarro love and this bizarro Christianity, and it does not represent what God has called us to do, and we're pushing people out of the faith. How many lives could be saved if we were just regular Christians, if we just came in with real love, with humility, came into a restaurant? Some lady, some young man who's trying to find their way, trying to work, trying to get through life, and we come in and we encourage them and we edify them and we show them what it really means to be a part of this Christian love, not the bizarro stuff. And what Paul does in Philippians 2, verses 1 through 8, is he talks about this real love. And he uses Christ's example of humility to kind of teach us what we're supposed to do as Christians, first of all, but just as lovers of people. If you think about it for 1 second, you don't want to love like this. And you don't want to be loved like this. This is what Paul says here. He says in chapter 2, he says, if then there's any encouragement in Christ, if any consolation of love, if any fellowship with the Spirit, if any affection and mercy, fulfill my joy by thinking the same way, having the same love, there it is. Sharing the same feelings, focusing on one goal. Paul starts out by saying, listen, if you love Christ, if you really love him the way that you say you love him, if you really believe what you say that you believe, then we ought to be focusing on loving folk. We ought to be focusing on getting along with folk. We ought to be focusing on people with this same love, sharing the same feelings, focusing on one goal, and that is to lift up Christ so that he can draw as many people as he possibly can. So when I go into the restaurant, I represent Christ. And I want to lift him up as high as I can so that somebody might look at me and say, tell me what church you go to. Tell me about this God that you worship. Tell me about the people that you're around. Help me to understand this love that I'm seeing in every single thing that you do. Let's go a little bit further. He says, do nothing out of rivalry or conceit, but in humility consider others as more important than yourself. Now that's a mouthful. Paul says, don't do anything anymore out of pride, trying to show people what you got, who you are, how capable you are. Do you know how many people never advance in their career because they don't want other folk to know that they need more help, that they don't understand everything, that they don't know everything? He says, don't do anything out of rivalry or conceit. Don't do anything at all. Don't be married and be rivals with your mate. That's bizarro. That's bizarro marriage. Don't raise children out of rivalry and conceit. That's bizarro parenting. You've seen bizarro parenting on display with folk who are very patient with coaching their own children and dealing with their own children. Not so patient with dealing with other folks' children, not so patient with their own children. It's bizarro parenting. He says everyone should look out not only for his own interest. It's okay. I like this about Paul. It's okay to have some interests of your own. It's okay to take care of yourself. It's okay to go to work and provide for yourself. But he said, don't just stop there with your own house, with your own family, with your own job, with your own issues, with your own children, but understand that there are other folk who need you. He says, because when you just focus on your own interests and your own self, that's bizarro Christianity. That's not real Christianity. When you just focus on your interests, that's bizarro love. That's not real love. He says, make your own attitude that of Christ Jesus, who, existing in the form of God, did not consider equality with God as something to be used for his own advantage. First of all, listen, even if you are better than other people, don't use that for your own advantage. Even if you've done some things, even if you got some titles, even if you've got some experience, even if you are better than other people in your own mind, don't use that for your own advantage. Don't use that to talk down to people and to put folk down and to walk on top of people. He says, instead, he emptied himself by assuming the form of a slave, taking on the likeness of men. Instead of using it for your own advantage, pour yourself out. Help folk. Amen. Sacrifice for folk. Be there for people. Love on your children. Pour out on them. And when he had come as a man in his external form, he humbled himself by becoming obedient to the point of death, even death on the cross. Sacrifice for others. That's what real love looks like. That's what Christ does. Think about what Christ does. Christ is in heaven. He's with his Father all the time. And there's a problem on earth. And he doesn't even hesitate. He comes back in the form of a human. He puts on this old nasty flesh in order to come down for us, for each one of us. And he endures all kind of pain. And he goes through all kind of situations. And the entire time he's here, you know what he's doing? He's serving people. He's helping cure people who are blind. He's feeding people. He even gets to a place where he literally washes the feet of the people who are working for him. Imagine if your boss comes in, washes your feet. He takes it further, right? He didn't do anything wrong at all. Didn't make one mistake, not one sin. But he loves you so much, and it was real love. It wasn't bizarro love. It was real love, that he picked up a cross and that he went all the way to Calvary. Listen, he was spat on. He was beaten bloody. They put him up on a cross. And because of this real agape love that he has, this unconditional love, he doesn't know whether you're going to accept him or not. He doesn't know if you're going to continue to be bizarro or not. Doesn't care. He doesn't care about the fact that you may have bizarro love, that you may be in bizarro marriages, that you may treat everybody bad, that you may not ever understand what this real love thing is. He doesn't care about any of that. What he does is he loves you with agape. And now it's time for you to change. It's time for us to come away from bizarro. And I just want you to think about real love without this bizarro thing. You're no longer bizarro. You're no longer held to this. John says that we can make a choice. You can make a choice to be in the real world and love like the real world, or to be in God the Father's love. Today is a day that you will make a choice for your marriage. Today is a day you'll make a choice for your parent and single folk. Today is a day you'll make a choice for the relationships in your life, jobs, everything. You're going to be making a choice if you're going to continue in this bizarro Christianity, in this bizarro love, or if you're going to take a step toward love, the Father's love. And what does that look like for you? First of all, this real love thing, it puts others first. It doesn't just focus on its own interest and what it's going to get paid and what it needs and what this person did to me and what this person's going through, and even if they deserve to go through it. It doesn't even think about any of that stuff. You know what it does? It puts others first. This real love thing, when you take the bizarro out of it, it celebrates others' success. It doesn't sit around and think about what to do when somebody gets some type of an accomplishment. And you got to be honest with yourself. We've done that too many times where we think about, should I like that or not? Should I call them or not? Should I acknowledge them or not? Should I celebrate with them or not? This real love, it apologizes. It says to a mate, I am sorry. I'm sorry. I made the mistake. It was my fault. And even if I were right, I allowed for this to go on too long. It apologizes. It allows people to hear it say, I made a mistake. I'm not perfect. This real love, it admits when it's wrong. It says, I was wrong. I should have, fill in the blank, or I didn't. It doesn't make up excuses for not doing things. It doesn't try to make itself right. It doesn't try to make the other person confused. And I've been in arguments before where we've gone so far around in circles that I even forgot what we were arguing about. But that's bizarro love. But real love, it says, I was wrong. I made the mistake. Real love, it admits, I'm weak. I need your help. I can't make it through this without you. It goes to somebody at work and it says, I'm confused about this thing. I need your help. It doesn't worry about what the other person is going to say. It goes to people, parents, and it gets help with parenting. It goes to people, singles, men, women. And when it needs help with finances, it doesn't continue to struggle and allow for the same mistakes to rob you of all your future. It goes to somebody and it says, I need help with my finances. It doesn't sit back and say, I don't want them folk to know how much money I ain't got. But it says you have some knowledge about marriage. It goes to people and say, you've done this for 25 years. We're struggling with these things, and it's open and it's honest and it admits its weaknesses and it asks for help. Real love it's honest. It doesn't lie. It doesn't tell the person that you're in love with just whatever they need to hear in order to go on and be happy. It doesn't lie in the sense to make the other person happy, because that's only thinking about yourself when you lie to make the other person happy. And it doesn't lie to get what it wants, because again, you're only thinking about yourself. Real love is honest. It says you brag too much. It says you're too late. You're late all the time. Real love, it hurts when other folks hurt. It doesn't get any celebration in seeing folk who lose or fail or go through something. It sits down on the edge of the bed with a child who did the opposite of what you asked them to do and is now suffering from a mistake. And it looks at that child and it says to that child, it's going to be okay. And regardless of the situation, I'm never going to leave you. That's what it does. Real love doesn't have to be right. I'm freeing somebody today. This is going to free you. Listen, you don't have to be right. That's bizarro world. That was the old world that you had before you came in today, when you, since you were this little, were constantly trying to prove to everybody that you're right. I'm right. I'm right. I'm right. I'm right. The way that I do it is right. The way that everybody else does it is wrong. We get in such these silly issues, even within the church. People trying to be right, but not no more. Love doesn't have to be right. Matter of fact, sometimes you know it. It's best you want to be wrong. I want to be wrong on this because I love you so much. And if I'm right, you're going to hurt. And I would rather be wrong and love you and you not be hurt than to be right and see you have to go through this. But since I think that I'm right, I'm going to encourage you all the more. I'm going to be there for you all the more as you go through this until we figure out who's right or who's wrong. And if I was wrong, I'm going to be honest enough and loving enough, real love, not bizarro love, to say, you were right. I was wrong. Real love is humility. Real love is what Christ did for us. Real love is putting others first. Real love is not always thinking about yourself. There's nothing wrong with taking care of yourself. You should take care of yourself. That way I don't have to take care of you. Amen. But everything shouldn't be about you. Real love is not prideful. It doesn't in any way try to exalt itself, try to puff itself up. It doesn't in any way put other folk down. The Corinthian church had this crazy thing going on. The folk there had chosen which preachers they liked the best. Check this out. And they were going to church based on whether or not the preacher that they liked the best preached. How silly is that? That is bizarro. I think that happens sometimes now though. I think that some people sometimes will make a decision whether to go to church or not, depending on if that person or what that person is talking about, if this person is there or not. And they will say, listen to what you're saying. You're saying that being in fellowship with the other saints, encouraging the other folks, worshiping God. That's what we do when we come to this place. It's not just about the one person that's going to stand up. That's bizarro. It's pride. This is my guy. I'm going to be there for this guy. I'm not going to be there when the other guys come. The other guys need you. It's bizarro. But not no more for you. I feel it in this room. I feel something changing in this room. I feel things lifting up in this room. Let me just talk to you for a second, because I want you just to take a second and imagine. Just imagine. If you remove pride out of your marriage, if tomorrow you were able to remove one thing, just pride, well, what does that do for your marriage? If you guys are there together and you're just focused on the other person, not focused on yourself, not focused on your own interests, not trying to be right, not trying to make the other person wrong, if you just focus on yourself, what does that do for your marriage? What about parenting? If you got rid of this bizarro love out of your parenting, this bizarro love that is conceited, right? And it puts the elbow literally on the kid and pushes them down all the time. There's a difference between hands-off parenting and bizarro love. And the problem that we have is that we can't find the middle ground. It's either got to be tongues or no tongues. It's either got to be whipping or no whipping. Most of the time it's just love. But imagine what that's going to do for your job. When you go into work Monday and you're no longer operating in this bizarro mentality where you're thinking that everybody else has to change and it's everybody else's fault that things are the way that they are, that you are better than everybody else, that you should have got the job, not the other person. And you're able to go in and not only congratulate that person, but begin to actually help that person. Hallelujah. What difference will that make? What difference will that make in this church? Amen. If we're able to put aside our pride, I do it this way, I do it this way. We come from this background, I come from this background, and we can put down all that pride and all those things that separate us and just focus on love. Amen. Because that's bizarro love. So this week, I want you to focus on this one phrase, and that is, the love of the Father will be in me as I replace my pride with humility. This week, I don't care what relationship, and you know I asked you those questions at the beginning, you automatically know, you already know the people in your life where you have this prideful type of relationship with. And what I'm asking you to do this week is I'm asking you to focus on serving others. I'm asking you to focus on sacrificing for others. I'm asking you to focus on being humble. I'm asking you to focus on taking the air out of the balloon instead of putting the air into the balloon this week. I'm asking you to focus on others' interests and other folks' kids. I'm asking you to focus on God. And I'm believing with all my heart that if we just focus on humility, if as a church we can just focus on humility, on being humble, on serving other folk, on being there for other folk, on not judging, on not being prideful, that we can make a difference all throughout this world. To God be the glory.
Here we stand in the presence of our Savior.
It's an honor
And it's an honor to lift our voice and sing
to the living God.
to the living God.
No one can deny
No one can deny
that Jesus Christ
Jesus Christ is